Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, How to Search for Electricity Providers in South East Queensland. My name is Daryl Giles from CCIQ and I'm your facilitator for today. Alongside me, I am delighted to welcome Julia Mylne, Senior Policy Advisor for CCIQ, and Peter Bennett, Sales Manager at ERM Business Energy for the Small and Medium Business Division, and they will take you through today's presentation. Following legislative changes from July 1, South East Queensland will move into a fully deregulated electricity market. This will require all small businesses to have a market contract with their electricity retailer. CCIQ believes this represents a very good opportunity for small business to shop around to see what electricity offers are available in order to get a better deal. First, some tips to get the most from today's webinar. We will be online for about 45 minutes, and following the main presentation there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. Please send through your questions for Julia and Peter using the text box on screen. At the end of the presentation we will collate all the questions and answer as many as possible. Following the session we will email all participants a copy of the presentation, a link and additional supporting information, so please check your inboxes later today. Now I'll hand over to Julia and Peter to take you through today's webinar.
Thanks, Daryl, and welcome to all those attending the webinar today. I guess the context and the purpose of this webinar really relates specifically to the retail electricity market in South East Queensland and in the lead up to the deregulation which is going to occur on the 1st of July this year. We're really trying to aim to educate small businesses on how to assess and better understand the market and get a better offer from competing electricity retailers for their business. It's very much focused for businesses, small businesses that we refer to in the market that are spending less than $30,000 per annum on their electricity. So if you are a larger user and spending more than $30,000 per annum, feel free to continue listening, but this might not be quite so appropriate for your energy use. So really, just to start off, really is just to set the picture of, I guess, the electricity grid and I guess the key parties that make up and getting that electricity to your business supply. So you've got the generation. Obviously, there are the various power stations that are dotted across Queensland. From the generation plants, you've got to get that electricity distributed and transmitted through to the premises, the households, the businesses all across Queensland, and the distribution and transmission is really the network company, so most of you will probably be in the Energex area, others may be in the ERM area, so we'll cover a little bit more as we go through this presentation. And then it comes through to the electricity retailers, that's where I'm from, and we're the ones that you typically deal with on a day-to-day basis, and again we'll cover a little bit more about what an electricity retailer's role is in the market. So the basics, so as I've mentioned before, you've got the generators, distributors, and then the retailers. In Queensland, a lot of the generation is through burning of coal. There's a good mix. There's plenty of different generation up there. The actual total capacity certainly exceeds the demand at the moment. I think in Queensland you've got just under 14,000 megawatts of supply. And if I looked at this morning, the demand was just under 3,000 megawatts. So the highest recorded is 4,760, which was done in the summer of 2009, 2010. So there's certainly no shortage of supply. As you can see, there is some restraints in other states, but in Queensland you certainly find there. And 65% of that generation is owned by the Queensland government. And the distributors, so just to cover off those distributors, you've got Energex, which is South East Queensland. That's typically where you'll see the competition occur. Ergon is more of a regional Queensland. And retailers you would have heard of, the big three, AGL and Energy Australia. We've certainly been up in Queensland since July last year, and there's a number of others that have been competing probably since around about 2007. So the role of the electricity retailer, so really from a retailer, you're going to see we're the people that actually bill you. So we'll bill you on your cents per kilowatt hour and your supply charge, and that really takes in all the different components of that cost structure of getting that power to your premises. We issue that electricity bill. We'll provide customer support and service if there's any questions around what's in that bill, any questions around maybe the accuracy of the meter, the readings, and various other things. So we'll also make sure that Energex and the supplier is all working for you. So we're your first port of call for any questions you generally get about your electricity. As I mentioned before, there's a number of people involved in that electricity supply chain. Each part of that supply chain has a cost component to it. You've got the wholesale energy, the cost of generating that electricity, getting that electricity to your business premises, which is that distribution and network cost. There's government green schemes in there as well to try and hit those various targets, those state and federal schemes that we're all trying to do as a country. And then you've got the retail costs as well. So as a retailer, we don't have any control or influence over the distribution or network charge and element of the cost. They simply sort of pass through from the distributor. And what you can see, though, is a typical breakdown. So 24% goes towards the generation of that electricity, 55% for the network and the delivery of that electricity, 15% for the retailer service, and then 6% for some government green schemes. And so you can see there, a large proportion of your bill is really dependent on that network charge and that delivery of that electricity to your business. Some real basics and some measurements around the electricity. I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of these, whether you're looking at replacing a light bulb or what you see on your bill. You've got watts and kilowatts, megawatt hours and gigawatt hours. So the bigger user you are, you start to talk in some of those bigger units. Really what you most commonly see on an electricity bill is kilowatt hours. So that's what your meter measures, and then you'll generally see that cents per kilowatt hour, and that usage times your rate is typically what you'll see as what you have to pay on your bill. Common households can spend around $2,000 per annum, so that's the equivalent of about 6,000 kilowatt hours, and broken down by day, it's 17 kilowatt hours per day. An average small business uses a fair bit more, which is about $7,500 per annum and 25,000 kilowatt hours. Certainly large businesses, they can consume a significant amount of power, but in the market is street, anyone over 160,000 kilowatt hours or $30,000 bill is a large market customer. You can obviously all see that how much you're using at your business will be shown on your electricity bill you receive each quarter or each month. Some other terms that you might hear or be familiar with, the National Metering Identifier, the NMI or NEMI, as we often shorten it to even further in the market. It's an 11-digit number. It's a unique identifier essentially for your meter, for your supply, and should link up with your address. So sometime on the top in your bill, the supply address should reflect what you know the address as. So it's a good thing to check. Make sure you're actually paying for the supply to your premises. The underlying tariff is really the structure of how you're going to be paying for your electricity bill. So we'll cover that again with some samples of bills. But that actually is set by your network distributor. So for those of you in the South East Queensland, that will be set by Energex. Then you've got your two core charges there. You've got the daily supply charge. That's a fixed charge. That's you're going to be paying that just to have supply to your premises. Then your usage charge is your variable charge, and that's based on how much you consume in that billing period. So peak and off-peak retail pricing. So it's also referred to as a peak-only tariff or a time-of-use tariff. As I said before, Energex would determine what tariff you're going to be on. You do have a choice in a say in that. So some people, more commonly, you'll see a peak only, so you'll be charged the same cents per kilowatt hour for your usage 24/7. But you can have other tariffs that have a peak, shoulder, and off-peak, or a peak and off-peak. The core one for time of use of peak and off-peak in Queensland. I just refer to the correct one here, is we define peak usage is from 7 a.m. in the morning to 9 p.m. in the evening, and that's Monday to Friday, so the weekends are off-peak. So I guess if you look at it from a profile point of view, if your business is running typically outside of those peak hours, you might well want to take advantage of a time of use tariff where you get good low off-peak rates. But just be mindful that you need the peak rate in those time of use tariffs is typically higher than a peak 24/7 tariff. So you do have some choices around that. Always best to speak to your retailer about looking at that. But you certainly can request, if you know you're operating in those off-peak hours, you could certainly take advantage and get some cost savings there. So currently, and this is probably the main topic for today's discussion, is that the rates in Queensland are currently regulated by the QCA, the Queensland Competition Authority. You can see in this table on this slide here, it shows you the three key tariffs there and what the rates are currently and what they were the previous year. So what's going to happen from 1 July is it's no longer going to be set by the QCA, so which essentially means there's no longer going to be a ceiling set by the QCA, which means retailers will be setting their rates. And the idea is to drive competition and provide more competitive pricing throughout the market, or certainly in our South East Queensland block. So we'll cover the different types of contracting at the moment, but you certainly shouldn't be paying any more than any of the rates you're seeing in front of you here on this slide. So here's an example of an electricity invoice. It is a very heavily regulated industry, so as a retailer, there's certain things we have to display and show on an invoice, and that's consistent across the retailers to try and make it a little easier for customers to make sure everyone can understand their bill. But basically, you get on the front page is mostly a summary. You've always got to have a chart there that shows sort of 12 months worth of usage, as long as you've had obviously 12 months at that particular retailer. It'll show greenhouse gas emissions. It'll show how much you've got to pay and when the due date is. And at the very top, it should provide you with some contact details. So contacts at your retailer, but also at the network. So if you've got a power outage outside of the hours your retailer works, that's the person to go and call to find out what's going on and why you haven't got supply. And then on the second page, that's where you start to get the breakdown of your meter reads, your usage, and your rates. So when you want to compare what you're paying with other offers, you really want to be looking at this page 2, which we've got on the next slide, which will just show you a little bit clearer about some of the things to look out for. So here you've got a couple of things to look out for. You can see the read quality. That says actual. Normally, NHS will get out there and read a basic meter, which most of you will have on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months, they'll come out and read your meter. If there are access issues, a barking dog, a lock meter gate, various things, they'll provide what's called an estimate, and then that'll be trued up or adjusted when you get the next actual. So to maintain getting good actual reads, you really want to try and make sure there's unrestricted access for the NHS meter readers to go out there and read that meter. And what you'll find is a previous read and the current read, and the difference between the two will be your usage. So you basically apply that usage against the rate, and under that tariff structure we spoke about a little bit earlier. So you can see peak and off-peak and a supply charge. On this particular example, you can see it's over a price change period. So you can see that there's a rate there, 27.7 for peak rate for up until the 30th of June, and then it comes down from the 1st of July. So normally you won't see that split like that, but you will find that quite commonly in Queensland from July onwards, because that's normally when retailers will reset their rates, and that generally reflects the same time as when Energex and Irvine as a network provider, they're allowed to pass through different network charges. So it's always good around mid-year to have another look at what you're paying. So quite simple from a contracting point of view. There's a standing offer or standard retail contract, which is pretty much a deemed arrangement. So if you haven't entered into any agreement with a retailer, that's what you'll end up on. They are, at the moment, that will be on those regulated rates we saw on the earlier slide. So yeah, they're generally more expensive than a market retail contract. A market retail contract, that's something you need to negotiate directly with a retailer, and should provide you with some better rates and lower costs than the standing offer. There's many different terms and conditions and market offers out there. So you do need to look at those closely, and I know that will be covered by Judy a little bit later in this presentation. So it's not always easy to tell between the two, but if you look at those regulated rates in that earlier slide, and if you find yourself on those, you're pretty much going to be on a standing offer or a standard retail contract.
Thanks, Peter. We'll go to talking about price deregulation and what that means for your business. So as Peter mentioned earlier, previously electricity prices have been set by the Queensland Competition Authority, or the QCA, each year, and provided regulated prices for customers in Queensland. So from 1 July 2016, the QCA will no longer set prices in SEQ. The move to deregulation is designed to encourage new investment in the market and allow retailers to offer products and price offerings that better suit the needs of their customers. This may provide SEQ consumers and small business customers with flexibility, choice, and ultimately more control over their electricity bills. So what does this mean for your business? Small business customers can compare retailers and enter into a market contract with an electricity retailer that best meets their needs, so price and service. The switch to deregulation will provide all small business customers with the opportunity to shop around and for the best deal to meet their needs, so shop, switch and save. So small businesses can shop around now. However, more choices may be on the market once prices come out on 1 July. The Department of Energy and Water Supply a small business animation that summarises how to compare deals, and that can be found on the CCIQ website or on the Dues website. So how to shop around. The Energy Made Easy website is an independent site that provides information about all offers available on the market. So this is run by the Australian Energy Regulator, and this is not a switching tool or service, it simply provides information. So the Energy Made Easy website also offers other useful information, including fact sheets and videos. So using your most recent electricity bill, you can enter your usage data and see all comparable offers on the market. The site also provides filters to cater for different circumstances such as solar PV. An important thing to note as well is other commercial comparison sites may not offer and may not display all available offers on the market, so it's best to use the independent Energy Made Easy website. So comparing retail offers, questions to ask when looking at electricity offers. Some important questions might include, what is my energy use? Does my business usage fit into a small business or large business category? So as Peter pointed out earlier, if you spend more than $30,000 per annum, you will be a large business customer, and you should contact a retailer about obtaining a tailored price for your business. But if you spend less than $30,000 per annum, you'll be a small business customer, and market contracts will generally be available to you. So check to see if you're on a standing offer or market retail contract. If you're on a standing offer, you're probably paying too much for your electricity and may save money by signing up to a market retail contract. So when comparing offers, have your electricity bill handy so you can compare like for like and look at the price that you're actually paying. So the best way to do this is to look at the cents per kilowatt hour. This is the best basis for comparison between retailers. So a few further questions to ask when comparing electricity offers. Check with your current retailer before you sign a new contract to see if exit fees or termination charges apply. When entering a new contract, find out if you need to pay a security deposit and how much it is. Check what methods of payment are accepted and determine if they suit your business. Do they incur any extra charges? If you've been offered a discounted offer, make sure you understand the actual price you'll be paying in cents per kilowatt hour in order to make a fair and accurate comparison. Make sure you ask what the discount is off. So is it off the total bill or off another charge, for example, off usage charges only? And ask how long the discount lasts and what happens to the price once it ends. So you can also ask if there are any late fees that apply if you don't pay your bill on time, and consider the service model of the retailer. Does it suit your business? Is there a dedicated service team or account manager for small businesses like yours? And after you agree to switch to a new offer, the retailer must send you a copy of the contract with all the terms and conditions. You can visit the CCIQ website for more information, and we've got a couple of fact sheets detailing those questions further. So just a quick note about the retail electricity market in regional Queensland or areas outside of South East Queensland. Post 1 July 2016, the QCA will continue to regulate prices in regional areas of Queensland. In parallel, the state government investigates options to expand competition outside SEQ. So most customers in regional Queensland are serviced by ERM Energy Retail, and competition is limited in these regions due to a state government subsidy that's paid to ERM Energy Retail to cover the higher costs of supply to remote regions. Other retailers don't have access to this payment and therefore have limited ability to compete with ERM Energy's prices. So CCIQ is working with the state government to increase competition in regional Queensland for small business consumers. CCIQ EcoBiz is also here to help small business. EcoBiz is a free program to help businesses reduce the cost of energy, water and waste. So EcoBiz has connected with over 2,000 businesses online and delivered tailored coaching to 600 businesses across the state. On average, businesses in the program have saved 35% off energy consumption, 34% off water and 37% off waste production. By providing the tools to measure activities and track inputs, outputs and bills, the program has helped all types of businesses save thousands of dollars by increased efficiencies. So you can contact the team there at ecobiz@cciq.com.au for more information. So that concludes the presentation for today. So we'll pass back to Daryl for the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Julia and Peter, for the informative presentation, advising businesses how to compare offers and get a better deal. It's now time for our question and answer session, so please send through your questions for Julia and Peter using the text box on screen, and they will answer as many as possible in the remaining minutes. We've got a few to get started with already, and I'll ask Peter, how do I know if I'm on a standing offer with my retailer?
Yeah, it's a good question, Daryl. Unfortunately, there's no state on your bill whether you've got a standing offer or a market contract, so there's really only two ways you can do it. You can look at the rates you're paying, and if you're just paying those rates with no lines of discounts that we put in the earlier slide, that would suggest you're on a standing offer contract. If you're paying something different or you've got a line with a discount or something lower than those rates, you're likely to be on a market contract. But if you want to be very sure, you can just call up your retailer and ask them and just confirm what type of contract you're on. If you're on a market contract, how long that goes until it expires, and if there's any exit fees for you to move to another retailer. So that's really the options you've got there.
One of our listeners wants to know, will they lose power if they happen to switch retailers?
It's a common concern, and no, they won't. If you're just switching retailers, you've been at the same premises, No, it literally is just a change in retailer. At the Energex, as we talked about earlier in the presentation, they're responsible for reading the meters and getting that electricity to your business. Nothing changes there. You're still in that Energex network. So all it means is instead of Energex sending those meter reads to your previous retailer, they'll start sending them to your new retailer. So that's really what happens in that circumstance. And the thing to bear in mind is, as I did mention as well, is that most of the meters they're called basic meters, or they're simple dial meters. They're read on a quarterly basis typically. So when it can take a while for that to happen, but there's certainly no disruption to your power.
Okay, one more. My bill does not look anything like the sample that was referred to earlier. How do I compare and find peak and off-peak charges when my bill simply says Business Saver Plus?
Yep. Well, if your bill says Business Saver Plus or peak only, and it might vary by retailer, and essentially you're just paying one rate for 24/7 hour period. So that's what you'll see on your bill. That means that's the rate you're currently paying. If you want to find out what a time of use, so what some peak and off-peak rates are, you can go to your retailer, you can go to other retailers, you can go to the Energy Made Easy site, and they'll have a thing called a fact sheet. You look at the Energex fact sheet, and you'll see the peak and the time of use tariffs there, and you can compare the two, and then you can start to make a decision whether you feel that you can take advantage of that off-peak. But that's where you'll have to go. And if you want to make it even easier for yourself, you can just call up your retailer or another retailer, and they'll also provide you with some fact sheets. But that's the best way to approach that.
Lisa would like to know, can I go to the market if I'm sitting in a tenancy in an office building, or do I have to purchase through my building manager?
Interesting. That will depend upon the contract you've got with the owner of the building. Typically, you find that most people leasing are responsible for the power bills. If you are responsible for paying those power bills, you certainly can go and choose another electricity provider. So yeah, absolutely, that's still open to you. So you don't lose that right just by being a tenant.
Okay, one more. Why do I not transfer straight away when I have switched, like I would if I refinanced a loan for my business? And what is the cause of the delay?
Yeah, it's a very common frustration, that one, and that comes back to that same point regarding the regularity of the meter reads. Unfortunately, what's required to move from one retailer to another retailer is an actual meter read. That's when Energex next get out and read that meter. That's typically when the transfer goes through in the market. So you could sign up on a contract today. If your meter's not going to be read until beginning of April, that's likely going to be when that's going to change. So that's what causes those delays. If you have a cause, or you particularly want to have something move on to those offers sooner, you can request whoever that retailer you're going to raise what's called a special reader, and a special reader would be outside the normal schedule that Energex do. Most retailers like ourselves would be willing to waive. It's only an $11 fee, but even if they do on charge that $11, by bringing it forward a couple of months, you can certainly get that benefit back in those better contract rates. So there are options too, but typically it will go on that next meter read.
Bruce would like to know how far does what areas does the change affect? He's from Toowoomba and he wants to know, would deregulation help out there?
It's a good question, and I'm based out in Melbourne, so my geography of Queensland is not brilliant. Toowoomba, I'm trying to think where that sits, whether that's in urban or Energex patch. Julia, are you able to confirm that?
I believe there's different areas that apply to Toowoomba. Toowoomba's just west of Brisbane here. So some might be covered by Energex, some might be covered by Ergon, but your retailer will know that if you want to give them a call and just inquire which network provider applies to you.
Right, we've had several ask this question. As everyone wants to know, are electricity prices going to keep going up? And have you got any idea what the expected percentage increase might be for the next year?
I'd certainly love to have that insight. probably make myself quite a wealthy man, but it's one of those things. One thing I'd be pretty confident on is what's happened over the last 5 or so years is not likely to be repeated. There are a lot of factors that make up those costs and charges, so it is very hard to be definitive about that. I would expect, from where I'm sitting, I'd certainly expect things to flatten out and possibly come down over time. Certainly there's an oversupply from a generation to demand, so that's normally good from an economic point of view. The Australian Energy Regulator, they're certainly hot on making sure that anyone running the poles and wires, those network operators are keeping in check on what they're spending and the costs they can pass through. So I certainly wouldn't expect to see some of the increases that people have experienced. This is certainly in Energex. Ergon is a very different kettle of fish altogether, but in Energex, I would suggest the bring forward of competition and deregulation, you'd like to start seeing some stronger offers there for business customers. So certainly if you haven't looked now, but certainly be looking at what's out there come July.
With deregulation, do you expect to see much fluctuation on prices, much variance between the electricity retailers that are out there?
Yes, there typically is. If you look at the other states, so as I said, I'm based down here in Melbourne. Victoria has been one of the most competitive markets for electricity, not just in Australia but worldwide. There is quite a big variance from one retailer to another. If you move away from QCA regulating the rates and setting a ceiling, the electricity retailers may set their own rates and then discount from that. So it does pay to shop around. So from July, you won't be able to compare discount with discount. You've really got to look at that underlying rate that Julia mentioned. But yeah, I mean, certainly in Victoria, we can see upward of a 10% variance. So that's pretty significant when you start to spend sort of 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 or more on your bill. So it definitely there's a lot to look out for there.
Nigel would like to know, if he switches retailer and he's not happy, can he switch back? And additionally, is there any limit on the number of retailers you can keep switching to and from?
The answer to the first question is yes, absolutely. You can switch. It's a competitive market. It's your choice which retailer you want to be. So you can certainly switch. You can switch as many times as you like. It's obviously not something us as a retailer like to see. But it's ultimately it comes back to us to say, well, if we continue to provide you with a good competitive rate and good service, then I'd like to think that should hopefully keep you as a loyal customer. But equally, if we don't, that's what happens in a competitive market, and ultimately, you should look at changing if things aren't suiting you. So, but there's certainly nothing in the regulations to stop you switching from one retailer to another.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions we have time for today. So I'd like to thank Julia and Peter and everyone who has joined us for this webinar. Don't forget that CCIQ has a range of webinars and events coming up over the next month or so, including Why More People Don't Do Business With You with Nexus Innovation on February 19, and Fraud and Forensics Part 2 with Alton on March 3. If you want to find out more about the upcoming webinars, go to the CCIQ events page to book your place. Thanks again for joining us today. My name is Daryl Giles from CCIQ, and I look forward to welcoming you to another webinar in the very near future.